Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Jay Helms, and I'm the founder of the movement and podcast known as the W2 Capitalist. Today's episode have a very special guest. We were chatting just a little bit ago. I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity, Mark Hentemann. I should have asked, make sure I pronounce it. I am horrible at pronouncing names. I don't know what it is. It's just one of those things where I should have asked. Am I getting it right, Mark?
Yeah, that works.
No. Let's get it right. That's not. It works. Is it Hentemann or is it just Hentemann?
Yeah, no, it's Hentemann.
Okay.
You got it.
Awesome. So Mark is an Emmy-nominated writer, producer, and original writer of the show Family Guy, which if you don't know about that show, where have you been? After struggling, I love this bio, after struggling as a starving artist, he used his first script payments to buy a duplex as a hedge against the uncertainties of the entertainment career. And we're going to get into that. He thought that show was going to be canceled, which is incredible. So real estate became a passionate side hustle. And since he's built an $80 million multifamily portfolio in Los Angeles and Austin, Texas, Los Angeles, California, I might add, for those who are geographically challenged, and Austin, Texas, founded Quantum Capital and hosts the Wild West Real Estate Podcast, which I love the name of that podcast, by the way. Mark continues to write and produce and voice act on The Family Guy, has created shows for Fox, MTV, and written for movies. His mission is to help people achieve financial freedom through real estate so they don't have to become television writers. So I did not, as you can tell, that's the first time I've read your bio the entire way through. So that is incredible, man. You want to help people achieve financial freedom so they don't have to become television writers. Let's just dive in right there. What do you mean by that? What's so bad about being a television writer?
Yeah, no, that's just a joke. Yeah, the job of every job in television is different. There are nightmare shows to be on, there are great shows to be on, and there are some that are like the one I've been on, almost steadily for 20 years. Went from being really hard in those early years and 15-hour days to now that we're 20 seasons in, it's very efficient. We know what we're doing and it's the best. It's like these are all my old friends. We go to work each day, we make fun of each other and laugh and the hours are great. And so I don't know if that last statement
No, I get there was some sarcasm in there. It's pretty good. I would have to say the same thing. I would have to say, I want to teach other people how to become real estate investors so they don't have to have a job in cybersecurity sales. Right? That's
right.
Which compare the two between what you do and what I do. Mine almost you can't get away with the sarcasm. It's like, oh, he's serious. It's
Right.
not as awesome as being a writer for a show that's been on the air for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And which is incredible. And we were chatting a little bit in this part of your bio too, is that you didn't think you bought a first duplex. Was it your very first investment property or your very
Yes.
first duplex?
I never owned anything.
Wow. So your very first duplex you bought it with your script money because you thought, okay, this show is going to get canceled. I've got to have a place to live. I've got to be able to rent this thing out. Let's dive into that a little bit. So I don't understand what script money means. I'm assuming that's just your payday for, hey, I'm going to write this. Do you write a whole season? Do you write one episode at a time? How does that work?
Yeah, well, we have seasons that are about 22 episodes. That's what they were. It's what they've consistently been every year. And I think in that first season, I think I got a couple episodes for me to write. Every script or storyline gets assigned to a writer. So they get spread around the writer's room and then you go off and you write that script. And, you get paid. I think back then it was maybe 25,000 a script. And then, you get residuals and you also get show producing fees. But that's what I got. I got a couple of those like 25,000 script payments. And I think I literally had like $45,000 in the bank. after a long stretch of just being broke and trying to break in, and it was traumatic. Like prior to that, it was a long journey trying to chase a dream from Ohio to ultimately into the business. And I had never known anybody in the business, but I was just dumb enough to try, and try to teach myself how to write, how stories worked, how jokes worked, what makes them great, what makes them work when they work, and what makes them bad when they're bad.
You mean there's
But
an actual science behind what we watch on TV and not just a bunch of guys getting together and says, "Oh, I think this is going to be funny. Let's put it together." Are you saying
yeah,
there's
I
an
mean,
actual science, just like in real estate investing, right?
I didn't know. I mean, I just started watching.
I don't think I realized it either until you just said it and this light
Yeah,
bulb went off. I was like,
you just
wow,
had to.
that's
I was like off on my own. I didn't know anybody that had ever worked in the business, and I didn't go to school for it at all. I went for something completely worthless. But I was
as
trying to.
most college educations are, but it's
Right.
a topic for another episode.
Yeah, but I tried to teach myself, like, yeah, how deconstruct everything, like every joke. Why is that working? Why does it not work? What's wrong with it if it doesn't work? And same with stories. And then eventually just started practicing it and try to build up that discipline, and did that for a long time. And, was going totally broke. And I was in New York um, for a while, and yeah, had no money and was, you know, facing homelessness. And it was, it sucked. It sucked being a starving artist and bolting awake in the middle of the night, panicked over how are you going to pay your rent. So those wounds were fresh when I joined Family Guy. I got hired on David Letterman actually before Family Guy,
Oh,
and
very
did
cool.
a brief stint there, and then moved out to LA and joined Family Guy. But yeah, I was determined. I got to get a financial cushion. And
When were you on when were you on Letterman?
96, 97.
Okay. I was trying. I went to New York with a group, and we just happened to get tickets to a Letterman show. We were walking by the right place, right time, and the guy handed them to us or whatever. I think we had to answer some trivia questions to get in,
Oh, really?
and yeah, but one of the guys was a big Letterman fan, and we ended up going. So I was trying. I think it was like 99, 2000. So just missed you
Okay.
there. That's cool though. That's very, very good stuff. So you bought this first duplex. Did you house hack it? I know house hacking probably wasn't a term 20
Right.
years ago, but did you
Yes.
house hack it? You lived in one side and rented the other?
Yes. In retrospect, it was a house hack. And, I had you started, it was not really that intentional or deliberate. I knew, I had felt this anxiety about pursuing a career in the entertainment business. And I was really pretty desperate for financial stability, or at least a financial cushion. And I had no confidence that I was going to be consistently employed in this
Mm.
business and make a decent living. So, I randomly ran into a broker on one Sunday morning, and I was in a living in a one bedroom apartment. And she was like, "Why aren't you putting your savings into a mortgage?" And I was like, you think I want the responsibility of a mortgage? Uh, but I talked to her for a while, and she eventually I said, the only way I would ever take on a mortgage is if that mortgage was a way for me to find some kind of financial cushion, and it would have to be the best investment I've ever made. Like, don't you dare show me any like charming, cute houses that got, freshly painted with
Right.
flowers in the front. Like, it's got to be ugly, a turd that I can turn into a diamond. And that was it. And we walked off, and I was like, I'm never going to hear from her again. But she called me, and she said, like 2 weeks later, she said, "I found the property you need to buy, but there's a catch. You need to become a landlord." And I was like, "A landlord? I don't want to be a landlord." But I met her at this property, and it was this duplex, rough around the edges, overgrown. The sellers were moving to Kansas, I remember, to dig a hole and live off the grid.
Oh, wow.
And they had goats, and they were raising goats and chickens in the backyard in the middle of Los Angeles.
I was going to say, is that legal in Los Angeles?
Who knows? Probably not.
Probably not. Maybe
Probably not.
just one. Maybe just one
Maybe,
chicken.
yeah. But
All
but
right.
yeah,
So
go ahead.
yeah, you unpacked a lot there. You became an accident. By the way, do you still keep up with the broker?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
She
I do.
changed your life forever.
She totally did. And you know what? She could have taken me to the cleaners. Like she could have gotten me the worst, made a quick buck off me, but she didn't. And I'm so grateful for that. Like she had my back
Yeah.
when she didn't know me from Adam.
Yeah.
And and I've been friends with her ever since. I bought 3 houses from her. And my first was that duplex. I bought 2 houses since then. And the latter 2 houses, I found them on my own, and I just called her. I said, "You want to be the broker on this? Represent us."
That's
And,
awesome. Yeah.
but she's the
So
best.
how, when you say, I don't know, there's so much to unpack there. You didn't have intentions of coming in and being a landlord. Like you were truly an accidental landlord, right?
Correct.
But you did this 20 years ago when there was no internet, there was really no podcast, I don't think,
Right.
right? And if there were, they weren't talking about real estate investing. What, how did you even have the idea of, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this with an ugly house that basically a value add, right? Well, we know it now, it's a
Yes.
value add. How did you come about that idea, right?
Well, I mean, I knew the concept. It's not a new concept.
Right.
I met her at the property. I knew arriving there, that this is a neighborhood that's transitioning quickly because it's really well located. And, it had been, I think it goes back to like the LA riots in the mid 90s, like some formerly great, pretty nice, well located central neighborhoods had, kind of gone into disrepair because of a combination of the riots, the earthquake, and a recession. And this was one that was coming out of that. And it was walkable to this really quaint stretch called Larchmont Village of restaurants and shops and cafes. And that's an amazing thing in LA is if you could park your car on Friday when you get home from work and not drive the rest of the weekend and just walk in this like charming neighborhood to this village.
Yeah.
So I knew that there's no way that this is not going on an upward trajectory. But then, yeah, it was, I could see the architectural detail of the duplex that was just totally lost, neglected. So that's kind of what made me jump into it. I was like, okay, let's do this.
How many years before do you still own it, by the way?
I do not. No, I sold it after 5 years.
Okay. So after 5 years, you had built enough into it. Did you 1031 exchange into something else or?
Yes. So I got into a bidding war. I had a rude awakening to what the LA real estate market. I told her like, okay, let's do this. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
buy this. Can I have this property? What do I have to pay them? And she's like, you make an offer. I think it was listed at $370,000. I started at $350,000. There was 15 other buyers that came into the
Wow.
picture, and we got into a bidding war for 2 weeks. And I had no idea how to evaluate, and just wrote it. And I kept saying like, June, what should I do? What do you think? Because you know more about real estate than I do. And she's like, I think it's a good deal. I think you should stick with it. And so this $370,000 property that I offered $350 on, after 2 weeks, I won the bidding war at $435,000,
Wow.
and immediately thought I had made a huge mistake. And yeah, but tried to move in and Mike Henry, who does the voice of Cleveland and Consuela and Herbert on Family Guy, he was my tenant. And he made fun of me for being a landlord, and I threatened to evict him on a daily basis.
Is there an
Yeah.
episode where you guys worked that in, the whole commentary? Do you
I think
remember?
we did an episode where Stewie and Brian rehab an old house, and it's kind of based on,
Based on some of y'all's conversations?
me talking about yeah, me talking about real estate too much in the writer's room.
Yeah, that's cool though. I love it. I
But that's a
love it.
long answer to get to. I did 1031 exchange it, but I also was, I was reading. My education in real estate came during owning that, because I was terrified. I thought I had made this disastrous mistake by way overpaying, and I just wanted to survive. And so I was reading everything I could about, about landlording, about real estate investing, and about taxation. So when it came time to sell, when I sold, we also had a bidding war. I think there was 20 buyers, and the property I had overpaid uh, to buy for 435,000. It sold for 1.27 million, and
Wow.
I asked my accountant, can we take the primary residence tax exclusion of $500,000 on our side of the duplex, and can I also 1031 exchange the other side of the duplex? And this CPA said, yes, you can do that. And so, we took out 500,000 tax free, and then we exchanged into a 14 unit in Hollywood. And I was hooked
That's
at that time.
yeah, yeah. So having a CPA is one of the best decisions I've done in the last 3 years. Didn't have one up until then. Thought I could do it on my own. But you, my friend, are smarter than I am. Obviously, you did it very early on and saved you tons and tons of tax. You also, one lesson that you learned, and you may have not realized it at the time, was how to time the market, right? Or when to
Yes,
buy low and sell high, and when things are getting hot. That
totally.
you. I mean, imagine if you would have bought that property in 2005 and then tried to sell it in 2010, right?
Yeah.
Totally different story, and you would probably have a totally different taste in your mouth about real estate investing.
And you'd
So
have a totally different financial picture. Like, starting off with a win is
yes,
is big. I mean,
yes,
I if someone did the math on what happens if you start off with a loss versus what happens if you start off with a gain, and that's what you're building
I
over.
started out with a loss.
You
So
did.
yeah, so quick story: first
Yeah,
property I bought in 2006.
really.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, I sold it in 2015 because I converted it into a rental. Didn't know what I was doing. Thought I was getting all this cash flow. Turns out it was costing me $300 a month to own it. Somehow I didn't know that, and I ended up selling it, buying a 600 square feet, $22,000 foreclosure, put 9 grand into it, and rented it for $600 a month.
Oh, amazing.
Owned it outright. Yeah, so it took 10 years or so for me to get back and say, okay, I want to do this again, right? Versus you came out of your first 5 years with a ton of cash or tax-free cash in your pocket, saying, all right, how do we double this, right? Which is incredibly cool.
Yeah,
But
and
timing the market is huge.
I agree. People say don't time the market, just dollar cost average. I think in real estate, you can time the market, because real estate is slow moving and inefficient. It's not like the stock market, which you could
Right.
trade in the click of a button. Real estate moves at a glacial pace. So I think you can get ahead of shifts in the real estate market. It's much easier to buy when the recovery begins than it is to sell before a collapse, because selling takes a lot longer. It could take 6 months, whereas you can buy in a day. But yeah, and I didn't know the market was at a good time in the year 2000. I actually thought we were at the peak, and that I had missed the growth, because I remember, going out with friends, and everybody was talking about real estate in 1999 and into 2000, and I thought I was the last person to show up for this this boom. But who knew that it still had 7 more years to go? But yeah,
Yeah.
when the wind is at your back, it forgives your mistakes.
Yeah.
And I certainly wasn't savvy at real estate back then. And, it was lucky.
Yeah. Yeah. Glad that you recognize that. I was going to call you out if you didn't, but yeah, luck definitely played a part, which is fun, right? You wouldn't have been in that position if not given that broker and your what you thought was going to happen to the show you're writing for. So that's incredible. So if I'm hearing you right, you wouldn't say, "Hey, chance it, buyer's luck, just go buy something." You would say, "Learn how to evaluate a property before making an offer, before getting into a bidding war and going, what was it, 70,000 over your initial?" So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely learn the market or learn how to evaluate deals, both of those before making an offer, for sure.
Yeah. And, if I were to make like even a little finer point on that, it would be learn maybe at this point, understand the economy and try to understand the cycles of real estate. And if you like right now, I think if you're a new investor, yeah, definitely proceed with caution. But like if you could begin to understand the real estate cycles and know how they go up and then they dip a little bit and then they go up and then they dip, um, try to buy at the bottom and try to figure out when that is. It's not impossible. I mean, these cycles happen over and over again and they follow the same pattern, and it's the same economic causes and effects that cause them to do these things. So if you can get a read on that, you can time the market. And that's
Yeah.
what I've always tried to do.
Yeah. You said something there and I was like, "Oh, I need to write this down." No, I'll remember it. I'm going to ask you this question. So you know what? I forgot it. So we'll come back to it maybe if it hits me later. But
I'm a podcast host,
yeah.
and this podcast, the Wild West thing, and it's exactly what happens to me. They say something, I'm like, oh, I got to ask them a question about that. I got to follow up, and then a minute later, I have no idea what it
Yeah.
was.
And I'm an old school guy, so I've got my pen and paper right here, and I started to write it down. And the minute I did that, you said something else that sparked my interest. I was like, "Now wait a minute, what was I supposed to write down?" So anyway, we'll come back to it maybe. But so let me ask you this: you're buying in I know what it is now. I'm gonna write it down so I don't forget it. But you're buying in Los Angeles, which I understand is I don't own anything in Los Angeles. I've never looked at the market, but when I hear people talk, they're like, "Hey, it's expensive," right? How
Yeah.
are you finding deals now? And maybe that's why you've branched out into Austin, Texas. But your focus, you have a lot of units in Los Angeles. One of my I wouldn't say favorite. He's up there. One of the comedians I like right now is Anthony Jeselnik.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he has this line in his one of his recent specials is, I live in Los Angeles like you wish you could. And I think he throws a couple of extra. But apparently Los Angeles is one of those things. LA is one of those areas where it's just really expensive to get in. So did you get in at the right time, or are you still finding deals? And if you're still finding deals, how are you going about doing that?
Yeah. And the irony, and you brought this up a little bit ago, that when I started, there was no podcasts, there was none of that stuff. So this broker, June, pulled me away from renting my 1-bedroom apartment in LA and got me into this duplex. And I didn't know any better. I just bought this thing and lived in it and did really well. That first investment on that duplex, I think we put 10% down and had a 10 multiple on our leverage. And so my gain was like 2,000%. And immediately I was hooked and I started looking for more. I was like, I'm going to do this all the time. Tried to buy like 2 or 3 buildings a year in LA. And they were in my, unlike that first deal where I overpaid, at least I felt like I overpaid, I've been cheap ever since. And it's just a function of I have limited cash in my bank account, and I want to buy, the best I want to buy as many properties as I can. And so I would buy these 1920s buildings, which I really liked in LA. And that was the first one. The first duplex was the 1920s buildings. And, I could get those cheap. I could get those for about half of what, on a square foot basis, what other properties in LA cost. I could get those for around $200 a square foot, maybe 250 now. Whereas a lot of properties in LA are 500 a square foot. And you're getting them for half market. And, it just gives you a cushion to do things. And I try to renovate them. But anyway, so I was investing in LA, and I was buying 1920s product before I ever heard a podcast. And then my first real estate podcast I ever hear, they're like, don't invest in the coastal cities. You can't do it. You got to go to the middle of the country and never buy anything before 1980s construction. And I was like, what? I don't get it. Like, I was confused. I was like, so I've been doing this wrong the whole time. But
I think your bank accountant would say otherwise.
yeah, it was working great. I mean, I was so there was nothing deliberate or conscious about me investing in LA. Nobody told me I couldn't.
Gotcha.
And I know my handyman, who was from Trinidad, he bought a garage to keep his tools in. And that was 20 years ago too. And now he owns like 3 4-plexes. Like, the people investing in LA, the cool thing about LA is there's like 3 million properties in the, in the county of LA, 3 million parcels. And, I think you could find anything in LA. There's so much product. Some of it's distressed, some of it's cheap, some of it's outrageously expensive. And I just target those core areas that are growing, and I look for the cheapest properties, and I'll fix them up.
Yeah. One of the things I love that you just did, and this is a challenge to me and everybody listening or listen to this, is that you just said there are 3 million parcels in LA. I would challenge that, and you said it very confident, so I'm going to assume you know what you're talking about and you have studied this.
Probably not.
I would not know even where to begin, I guess, for the county that I live in, much less the counties that I invest in. So it is awesome for you to know that. And I think it's one of those testaments that you have to know your market, right? Back to, would you make an offer based on not knowing anything? That is getting into the weeds. And I think that helps you have a competitive advantage, because I bet I'm willing to gamble just a little bit. It's not even a gamble, really. That's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to your knowledge about LA. You've been doing this for 20 years. You've been focused on that it's a county, right? It's not just the city. Is it LA County, or is it LA?
Cool. Yeah, there's LA City, and then the county is a little broader.
Yeah. So I've got some folks who some acquaintances that live in Baltimore, but they always distinguish it's Baltimore County. Baltimore City is in. I'm like, I don't understand. Why can't you just say Baltimore? I don't know. Or maybe it's not in. Maybe I got that confused. But again, I'm geographically challenged. But so how, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, you were buying a couple of properties initially, right? And then you were buying them cheap because you obviously didn't have the garage that you're in now, which if you can't see the garage, I'm jealous of. But how did you fund these deals, right? Were you waiting just for another script payment to come along and then you were funding them, or were you going out raising money and talking to the old friends and family kind of thing?
Yeah, no, I was terrified of asking anybody for money and losing the prospect of potentially losing anybody's money. So yeah, I mean, after coming away from that duplex sale, it was exciting to me to save all of my money and pump it all into real estate. It created like this virtuous cycle. Like it was this shiny goal of mine. And I had no interest in buying a fancy car or any of the dumb status that people in the entertainment business or anywhere else waste their money on.
Yeah.
Every penny I could, I would save it. When can I buy another building? That was hugely exciting to me to
Yeah.
build this like portfolio. So I did that, throughout the 2000s with my own money. And, I think I just bought what I had funds for, and I would buy cheap, so I would look for that lowest cost per square foot. What's the max building I could get in a good area for the lowest price? And then
Love it.
I'll do whatever it takes to add value and make it worth, make the next buyer willing to pay market price for it.
Yeah. Love that. Love it. I love that because there is a stigma, not just with LA folks, but also, or not LA, but like Hollywood, the whole movie scene, acting scene, is that they have to have the best shiny object, the latest shiny object. But it's also with real estate investors too, right?
Yeah.
Especially these gurus, they'll come out and so I've been doing a lot on YouTube here recently, the last couple of weeks. And of course, I'm inundated with ads of real estate investors. And there's these guys that are half my age. They've got so much gold around their neck. They're leaning on a car or sitting on a hood of a car that I have no idea what it is, because it's not my 10-year-old truck that I drive, And I'm just like, these guys, who is the target audience? Because it's not me. Like, how many people actually believe this is what you're going to do? And then I've got Facebook friends who do post, hey, I got my new Tesla, or blah, blah, which I don't have a thing against Teslas, whatever. It's just that shiny new object syndrome that really bothers me. It just
Totally. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see how the world doesn't see those. That is idiotic.
I don't know how I'm getting those ads. Like,
right.
Like, I haven't clicked on any. Maybe I clicked on one just to watch it and entertain myself for a minute, but I don't know. And now I'm screwed, right? So anyway,
why are there so many gurus in real estate? You don't see gurus in other fields. Like, is
um,
to
I
have
don't.
have a coaching program about come to my 3-week boot camp and I'll teach you how to be an NFL millionaire.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think it's one of those things where if we were in that world, we would see that enough. I don't know. I think it's because we're in the real estate investing world that we see that enough. And I don't have a coaching side to my business. It's an educational piece to my business, but I don't take on one-on-one coaching. It's more of a mastermind. I advertise coaching and never had anybody take me up on it. I had one guy take me up on it. It was like $400 an hour. And a couple of weeks later, he says, hey, I really don't want to do this. Can we just back out? I was like, yes, thank you.
Yeah. There's some great coaches. I mean, coaching
there are
effective. It just, the people that you're talking about, who have been in the business for 6 months and now they're an authority somehow.
Yeah. They've done one deal and they went and rented or maybe broke into this mansion and filmed something with their iPhone real quick. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. It just catches me off guard because that's not my MO.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's the get rich.
Yeah. So how now? So you've built this. I'm gonna say an empire, right? Because you've got now, excuse me, $80 million worth of a multifamily portfolio. Is that just yours? Is that a mix of you and some partners? How is that mixed up? Because my ultimate question is, it seems like now you're raising money to buy these deals. So how are you going about finding partners and that sort of thing to look for your next capital guys for your next property?
Yeah, the first, I spent it would have been 8 years investing just my own money and doing what I mentioned about just trying to buy 2 or 3 properties a year in LA. And then at work, I had become a bit of an evangelist to all my coworkers, other writers. I was like, you got to get into real estate. This business we're in is so unstable. You got to do yourself a favor. And none of them surprisingly to me, none of them would do it.
Yeah,
And
I have those friends too. And
yeah,
Mark, when you weren't around or they saw you coming, they're like, "Oh, here comes Mark. What
he's
kind
going
of
to
real
talk
estate
about
advice is he going to give us now?"
right. So my coworkers were eventually like, you won't stop talking about this thing. So why don't you go find a property and we'll give you money and you could invest that. And I wanted them to get away from like the money managers that were taking advantage of them. But so yeah, so that was my first one. And ironically, I brought in 5 writers that I see every day, and we bought in 2008, and we removed contingencies, and Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns collapsed, and the entire global economy went into one of the worst recessions ever, led by the housing market, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. Way to go, Mark. Thank you for letting me
I
invest with
know.
you.
I was like, oh crap.
Yeah,
I see
yeah.
these guys every day. They're smart asses. They're never going to let me hear the end of this.
And you
And
probably still haven't, regardless of whatever happened with that deal, right?
what's that?
They
We
probably
don't.
haven't let you live that down yet.
I think some of them were so oblivious about the economy.
Hey, 4 things before you get out of here today. Number one, thank you for watching. Sincerely appreciate that. It helps with our ratings with YouTube and all that. And along those lines, speaking of helping with ratings, if you could just hit that like button for me, the little thumbs up, and also subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. If you are a subscriber, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We are trying to grow the presence here on YouTube, and this is you liking, subscribing, and commenting helps with that whole algorithm piece. So let us know. It also helps me know what kind of content you're interested in. And in the comment section, if you just list that one gold nugget that you took away from today's episode, that would really help me out and engage. Right, I'll get an alert when you say something about the episode today when you make it in the comment, and I will respond to you right away. And it'll be me. It won't be anybody else. I promise. And also, I can't let you get out of here today. This is point number 3, I think. I can't let you get out here today, but highlighting this affiliate for us, Deal Check, incredible piece of software. Whether you're doing burrs, you're doing fix and flips, you're doing buy and holds, and buy and holds is single family and multifamily. I used it last week to underwrite an 8-unit deal, and I'm going to be using it for any of our properties up to a certain number. Probably after the 50 range, I get my real heavy duty calculator out that I'll use that, but I'm also going to then take that and put it in the Deal Check, because the graphs that and just the amount of data they put into the reports that you can provide banks. Hell, I even sent one to a seller. I was like, here's the number. I know you're probably not going to be happy about it, but here's why I sent it to you, because I'm trying to hit these numbers, and we're currently negotiating on that deal. So we'll see what happens. But we have an affiliate code in the description below. Make sure you use that. If you don't, just go to dealcheck.io from any browser, and you can be able to sign up there. Signing up is free, right? So you can use it. You only start paying for it once you need to start unlocking pieces of software. For what I do with it, I'm a buy and hold guy, so from what I need, it's $5 a month when I use the promo code W2CAP. So make sure, whether you use our affiliate link or not, that you use that promo code, because it's going to give you 25% off either the monthly subscription you sign up for, or the annual. They've got 2 different options. The annual gives you a little bit better discount anyway. The 4th thing is Operation Underground Railroad. If you've listened to anything that I've been doing for the last year, you know that I highly support this organization. Again, the promo code W2CAP, you can text that to 41404, and you're going to get an immediate response link back to our fundraiser page, so you can see what we're doing for them. But also from there, you can hop over and see what all they're about. Highly recommend you follow these guys on social media and everything like that, because they're just ridding the world of not only human trafficking, but more specifically child sex trafficking, which is the most disgusting thing that I can ever think of, that this goes on. My heart goes out to those kids, and that's why I support them, right? Having 3 of my own, I just can't imagine them being in that environment. I'll give you a bonus. Okay, that was the 4 things, right? So like, follow, subscribe is number 1. 2, Deal Check was number 2, I think. I'm losing count here. OUR was number 3. The 5th, whatever the next number is, the 4th or 5th thing, is my hat has been crooked this entire time, and I'm not going to do anything about it. It's fine. It's okay. All right. On a serious note, let's get to work.